Okay, so today we're going to deep dive into something pretty intense.
Yeah.
It's Imran Khan's third open letter
Oh, wow.
to the current Army Chief General Asim Munir.
Right.
And it is not your typical political memo.
No.
This is a former prime minister
Uh-huh.
directly calling out the military establishment.
Yeah, you don't really see that every day.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
So for anyone who maybe needs a little bit of background,
Yeah.
Imran Khan,
Mm-hmm.
he had a whole life before politics. He was
Right.
a legendary cricketer.
Right.
He led his party, the PTI, to victory back in 2018,
Uh-huh.
served as prime minister until 2022,
Yep.
and that's when he was ousted after a no-confidence vote.
Right, right.
And ever since,
Yeah.
he's been incredibly outspoken,
Yes.
claiming that the military orchestrated his removal.
Uh-huh.
And this letter really brings all of those claims together.
It really does.
Yeah.
So what's really interesting in this letter is how direct Khan is
Yeah.
about his concerns for Pakistan's democracy, the economy, human rights even.
Yeah.
And he really puts the blame on the military's interference in politics,
Right.
which is a very bold accusation
Yeah, it is.
to put out there.
He's not holding back at all.
Right.
I mean, he goes into detail about how he thinks that the military
Yeah.
is behind everything,
Mhm.
from election rigging
Mm-hmm.
to manipulating institutions like the National Accountability Bureau
Wow.
or MB.
Right.
So MB is the organization that's supposed to be fighting corruption.
Yeah.
But Khan's saying that it's being controlled by the forces he's accusing of corruption.
I mean,
Out of.
it's a very difficult situation to be in.
Yes.
To have the people that are supposed to be protecting you from corruption
Right.
actually be the corrupt ones.
Right.
So to really understand why this is such a big deal,
Yeah.
we need to look at the historical context of the military's role in Pakistani politics,
Okay.
because they have always played a significant role, often justifying these interventions as something that's necessary for national security.
Uh-huh.
But critics argue that this undermines democracy and accountability.
Right.
So Khan's accusations are tapping into this sensitive, long-standing tension.
And his language is really powerful.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about invisible forces operating with impunity,
Right.
creating a reign of terror where might is, right?
Yeah.
Does that sound like an accurate reflection of what's happening?
Well, it's a strong statement for sure. But
Yeah.
you have to remember this is Khan's perspective.
Sure.
But it does reflect a level of distrust and frustration
Yeah.
that I think is shared by a lot of people who are concerned about the state of Pakistani politics.
Okay, so one of the most specific accusations that Khan makes is that the military rigged the 2018 election
Oh, wow.
to bring back the Sharif and Zardari families,
Yeah.
despite their history of corruption allegations.
Right.
He even names specific properties,
Mm-hmm.
like Surrey Palace and Mayfair Flats, as evidence of their ill-gotten wealth.
Right.
But what I think is really interesting is that he's claiming that intelligence agencies
Wow.
themselves
Yeah.
gathered evidence of
Mhm.
corruption against these families,
Okay.
but that they were seemingly protected and allowed to return to power.
So that's interesting because it raises questions about the rule of law
Right.
and the power dynamics in Pakistan.
Yeah.
I mean, if even intelligence agencies can't hold powerful figures accountable,
Yeah.
what does that say about the system?
Right.
Like, is there really any accountability?
It seems like Khan's point is that this creates a sense of impunity,
Right.
allowing corruption to just flourish.
And he even points out
Yeah.
that it was General Bajwa, the previous army chief, who
Mhm.
controlled the NAB,
Uh-huh.
not Khan's government.
Wow.
So he's saying that the NAB was basically used as a weapon against his opponents,
Right.
while those aligned with the military were shielded from accountability.
And for those who may not know, NAB is a very powerful institution.
Yeah.
They're responsible for investigating and prosecuting corruption cases.
Yeah.
So having that under the control of the military
Yeah.
would be a big concern for anyone who believes in an independent judiciary
Uh-huh.
and a fair legal system.
And fair elections.
Right.
A fair system in general.
Like Khan's saying the whole system is rigged,
Yeah.
at least according to him.
Right.
And that leads to his next big point, which is the destruction of democracy.
Wow.
He believes that Pakistan is backsliding,
Uh-huh.
and he points to the postponement of elections, suppression of media, the crackdown on PTI supporters,
Yeah.
all as evidence.
Right.
And this is where understanding the nuances of Pakistan's political history is really important,
Mm-hmm.
because there have been periods of democratic progress,
Right.
but they've been interrupted
Yeah.
by military coups or interventions.
Right.
And Khan's concern seems to be that the country is slipping back into that pattern, kind
Yeah.
of military tightening its grip on power. He even cites independent audits that suggest widespread electoral fraud.
Okay.
So is he right? Is Pakistan really heading toward this democratic backsliding?
Well, it's complicated. There's
Yeah.
no easy answer. I mean,
No.
while a lot of people share his concerns about this erosion of democracy,
Right.
there are counter arguments too that we should consider.
Okay.
Some might say that the military's role is necessary to maintain stability in this volatile region, or that Khan's government was ineffective and just needed to be replaced.
Right.
So to really get a balanced perspective, I think we have to explore all sides of the story.
Absolutely. And, we've got to understand the broader context,
Right.
consider different viewpoints before we can even think about forming our own conclusions.
Yeah.
So let's dig a little deeper into Khan's concerns about where Pakistan is going and
Um,
see how his arguments hold up against other perspectives.
All right, let's do that.
Yeah,
It's important to look at his claims carefully and see how they connect to the bigger picture. You know, the bigger picture of Pakistani politics and all of the challenges they're facing.
absolutely. And Khan really doesn't paint a very optimistic picture of what's going to happen to Pakistan if things don't change.
No.
He talks about a mass exodus of skilled workers and capital flight.
Yeah.
He uses this statistic. 1.7 million people have left the country in the past 2 years,
Where?
resulting in billions of dollars in economic loss.
Yeah, that is a staggering number.
Yeah.
And you really have to wonder, what does that say about a country
Really?
when that many people
Yeah.
feel like they need to leave?
Mm.
This brain drain can have really serious consequences for the country's future.
Yeah.
It's almost like a vote of no confidence.
And he doesn't stop there.
Right.
He goes on to talk about human rights violations,
Huh?
claiming that, we're seeing a level of state repression
Wow.
that's reminiscent of what happened in East Pakistan
Oh.
before the fall of Dhaka.
Right.
He cites over 100,000 illegal raids, more than 20,000 arrests,
Wow.
abduction and torture of PTI supporters.
Drawing that parallel to the events that led to the creation of Bangladesh
Right.
is a very powerful statement.
Yeah.
And it really suggests that if these issues aren't dealt with,
Yeah.
Pakistan could be on a path toward disintegration.
Wow.
It's a heavy comparison to make.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It seems like he's really trying to sound the alarm here.
Right.
Like he thinks that this is
Yeah.
the path that's leading to a breaking point.
Mm-hmm.
But then he offers what he thinks is the solution.
Okay.
He says that the military has to withdraw from politics.
That seems to be the core of his argument.
Right.
That for Pakistan to really progress, that the military needs to step back into its constitutional role
Okay.
and let a genuine democratic process happen.
So he's saying that the military being involved in politics
Yeah.
is actually hurting national security.
Yeah, that seems to be what he's saying.
Wow.
He thinks that by trying to hold on to power, the military is actually undermining the stability they're supposed to be protecting.
Okay, so that's a bold stance.
It is.
But is it realistic?
Yeah.
Can the military really just completely remove itself from politics
Right.
after decades of being so dominant?
Right.
What would that even look like?
Yeah, those are the million-dollar questions.
Right.
You know, there are no easy answers.
Yeah.
Some people think that the military is just too ingrained in the country's politics and economics to completely step aside.
Okay.
Others say maybe a gradual withdrawal could work,
Right.
along with strengthening civilian institutions. So it's a debate that's been going on for a long time in Pakistan.
And there's no clear answer.
No.
It sounds like his call for them to withdraw is more like
Yeah.
the beginning of a conversation
Right.
than like a real solution.
Exactly. It's more like a catalyst to
Yeah.
start a crucial conversation
Okay.
about Pakistan's future
Right.
and what role the military should play.
He also mentions misplaced priorities.
Yes.
He says that the focus should be on
Yeah.
structural reform,
Right.
economic growth, and a better foreign policy.
Especially with Afghanistan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
particularly when it comes to Afghanistan.
Right.
He specifically mentions terrorism, blaming the rise in terrorism on what he sees as ineffective policies in the region.
And to really understand that, we
Yeah.
have to look at the regional dynamics.
Okay.
Pakistan and Afghanistan share a very long border,
Right.
and it's not very well controlled.
Yeah.
And what happens in Afghanistan directly affects Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
So he seems to be saying that the government's approach right now isn't really working
Okay.
and that it's putting Pakistan's security at risk.
It's like they're so focused on fighting for power within the country
Yeah,
that they're forgetting about these
right.
big threats from outside.
That's one way to interpret it.
Okay.
And it really shows how domestic and foreign policy are connected.
Yeah.
Instability in one place can very easily affect another. Right.
And he seems to be urging the government to look at the big picture
Yeah.
and come up with a more strategic approach.
So it really feels like he's giving them this ultimatum, you know?
Yeah.
Keep going down this road and it's going to lead to disaster or
Oh.
make some pretty radical changes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the heart of it all is this fundamental question of who really holds the power in Pakistan.
And that's exactly what makes this letter so powerful.
Yeah.
This is about way more than Imran Khan and his complaints.
Okay.
It really gets at that struggle that's been going on in Pakistan for decades.
Right.
It makes us ask,
Yeah.
can you really have a true democracy
Right.
when there's this tension between the civilian government and the military?
Khan thinks the military needs to step back.
Yeah.
But is that really even possible?
I mean, that's the hard part.
Right.
It's one thing to say it,
Yeah.
but actually making it happen
Right.
is a whole different story.
Yeah. It would take a huge shift in mindset
Uh-huh.
from both the military and the civilian leaders.
Mhm.
You'd have to strengthen the democratic institutions
Okay.
and really build a culture of respecting the rule of law.
That sounds really challenging,
It would be.
especially when you think about how long the military has been involved in Pakistani politics.
For sure.
So what about this letter really struck you?
Hmm.
What were the key takeaways that you think
Yeah.
people should be thinking about?
I think what's most striking is just how bold his accusations are.
Mm-hmm.
He's not just critiquing policy here.
Right.
He's attacking the whole power structure
Yeah.
of Pakistan.
Right.
Whether you agree with him or not,
Mm-hmm.
you can't ignore the impact of what he's saying.
Yeah.
He's really started a debate
Yeah.
that's forcing people to rethink that whole relationship
Wow.
between the military and the civilian government.
And that's what makes this so important.
Right.
This isn't just another political move.
Yeah.
It's sparked this huge conversation
Right.
about what's next for Pakistan.
Exactly. And it's something that everyone should be paying attention to.
Absolutely.
It goes way beyond political lines.
It's about the future of democracy in Pakistan
exactly.
and how to navigate this complex political landscape where power is always in flux.
It really is.
So where do we go from here?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is this a turning point for Pakistani politics?
Mm-hmm.
Will we actually see real change?
Right.
Or will this just be dismissed as,
Yeah.
the ramblings of a former leader?
Who's lost his power?
Who knows?
Right.
Only time will tell.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure,
What's that?
Imran Khan has forced everyone to face these big issues,
Yeah.
these fundamental issues that Pakistan has to deal with.
We've given you the background and context you need
Yeah.
to understand what's going on.
Oh, okay.
So as things develop,
Yeah.
keep in mind what we've talked about today.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the historical context.
The power struggles.
Yeah.
Yeah, the power dynamics.
All of the different arguments.
All the different sides.
Keep asking those questions.
Stay curious.
Stay informed.
And come to your own conclusions.
Yeah. That's the most important part.
It's been a great discussion.
Absolutely.